film, and I'm going to watch it with you. Okay? So I hope you enjoy.
I see you are reading a fantastic book.
Yes, just got as a present.
I wonder who. Anyway. So, Sandro, you have a new film, Dry Leaf. Can you tell me something about the name of the film, the title?
I can. Well, you know, dry leaf is an important term in football. And it's believed to be created in Brazil in 50s. At least the guy who introduced it to the big audience was Didi in 1950, but I'm sure it was invented much before in some small village field, I guess, but he was who showed it to the world. And I'm also really amazed by, no one knows who it was, but someone saw this, it's a way of kicking a ball. And someone gave this really poetic name to this very brutal kick. I like it. It's a way of kicking a ball when no one, neither someone who kicks, but also for the goalkeeper, it's impossible to know where it will go in the end. Like a falling dry leaf.
The film is not about soccer, although there are something connected with it, which is the places that people played in the countrysides, and there is a problem with some missing soccer fields or places to play. But beyond that, the film begins with a problem in terms of narrative, which is a father doesn't know where his daughter is. But it's not a missing situation, because there is a letter in which she said that she's fine. And then the father wants to know where is she, and he begins looking around the country. That's the narrative model and axis of the film. Why you have chosen that particularly, like this as a main core of the narrative?
Well, the idea that I wanted to make a road movie was in the very beginning, and then I had a feeling that you need some force for a person to move through the country, and if it's just a touristic driving around, it's one thing, it can be interesting, but I thought it wouldn't be bad to have some kind of serious dramatic fable or simple story. Simple in a way how you can explain it. It's not a simple situation, but it's simple to put it in few words what is going on. So I felt it was also corresponding somehow with all the missing things which we miss in everyday life when you go to these places, and things you were used to see are not there anymore, and many things like this. You talk about the stadiums, but it's also a lot of, for example, water springs, which old people know, like in this village there you go and there you have a drinking water. But then things change. If you don't care about it, if you don't clean it every month, it gets full, it disappears. So all these things like this, for me, it was a good symbol to give some seriousness to some dramatic touch. Yeah.
There is something in the film which is connected, I told you yesterday when I presented the film here in Biennale, with the first films done by Joseliani, which used to be, before the narrative films about the countryside life. It was more connected with working. I think it's also because the Soviet era asked about it. But the way that he portrayed the countryside has a kind of poetic gaze and poetic sense. So here the film could be seen as a film about animals also, dogs, cows, donkeys, and also could be a film about the wind. Could you tell us a little bit about this, maybe that connection if it exists, firstly, and beyond that, the beauty of the film to try to think and capture as many ways as you can find to catch, for instance, the wind?
Well, we talked about it yesterday. Jeseliani, it's there is no way around, and luckily, I think especially for a Georgian filmmaker, because that's how we grow, and I think he's like a milestone which exists in most of, first of all in our hearts, I guess, because in front of the techniques of filmmaking and the knowledge and the very intellectual way of thinking about filmmaking, I think what is impossible to catch also in every filmmaker's career is how was his heart working, because how was his brain working in terms of how he was making films, maybe we can understand, but it's only part of it. I had a class last semester in Georgia for 6 months. For one semester we were only discussing his one film.
Which one?
I think in English it's called Falling Leaves.
Yeah, Falling Leaves.
Yes, and we had all kind of approach to see every cut, to see every composition, to see every sound. But of course, the most amazing thing stays untouched. And I think this is the main thing what he shared with us. So he's important, and for me it was also back then, like watching his films, I would ask myself, like, why does he need? Because he has these very simple stories in his films sometimes, like very simple fables, and I was thinking a lot about it. Why does he need them? Like, because his films would also work. I had thought back then without this, like very simple, like, you know, there is a guy and then the wine is bad and he decides to step against it. Like, do we need this like simple step of a person to change something as a story? Or it can work also without that, just with images. But then I thought, if he is making it, maybe there is something right. So that's also was for me a big inspiration, also what we mentioned before, to have this like a simple story in my film. And then this simple story, then I understood, gives you complete freedom in between to film what you really care about. And in this case, it became what you mentioned, all the surrounding what we met. Dogs, cats, trees, rivers, springs, and wind, of course. Yeah.
I'm planning to ask a lot of questions in terms of narrative, on formal things about the film in the second part of our conversation. But before that, I like to understand also something about something that is implied in the film, and you said something about it just a minute ago about the water. There's a particular moment that you showed that your father, who is the main character, takes the water, and you put a lot of attention in the framing. So can you tell us a little bit, because there is something that you can imagine meanwhile watching the film, which is the connection with what is going on in Georgia, which is almost off screen, but you feel that something is going on. Like at least people are not protected by the I don't know, not the state, but the way of life. And you feel that something is going on, but you don't go straight into it. Am I right?
I think so. Like when I was making my first film, Let the Summer Never Come Again, which has much more, I think, political subjects in it. Because, I don't know, I think I was younger and there were many things which made me kind of also angry, and I was thinking everything what bothers me I should put in the film. And at some point while writing I understood it's impossible that you put everything what is important for you, every subject, to make part of the story. You have to choose, and you have to trust that the rest, if you really care about, and if it's really in your mind and in your heart, it will be still transported as an emotion to the spectator. And I started to believe it back then, and since then it always proved right for me, this thought. And here it was much more than there, because here we almost completely refused of showing what was going on meanwhile, because we started to film in 2022, the time when the war in Ukraine started, and the moment I knew this film will never be, even though we don't mention this in our film.
But there is a feeling of collapse.
Yes, because I knew from this day I'm a different person. This won't be the film I would have made before. And since then we had so many things which are heartbreaking, I would say. I thought, of course, this transports into the film, and this was on so many levels. And I think the editing process, when I was editing the film, and the situation in Georgia became really unbearable, because when your friends are in prison and you sit at home and you edit a film, it's a very strange situation. But it's hard to say. It's an impossible situation which you live through, I would say.
There is something that for me is the most important thing in your film, to be honest. I am shooting this with an iPhone. It's not a new one, it's an old one, but it's still, I can record you in 4K. Your film has been done with all telephone in which the images that we see are broken. There is not any sense of sharpness. There is no brightness. So it's a film which goes against the whole hysteria of, let's say, 4K aesthetics or 8K aesthetics. A certain kind of high reality representation through a medium. And this is something which is extremely powerful in your film. Can you tell us a little bit about why you have chosen to do a film in that way, in which there are a lot of panning, there is a lot of open shots with the nature, with animals, which could have been, in quotes, beautiful in another kind of camera, and it is much, for me, much more beautiful in the way you portray. But it's a very daring assumption.
Well, this device, which is a Sony Ericsson phone, I bought it in 2008 as a phone to listen to music primarily. And then, because I was 23, 24, and never before in my life I had made like pictures or videos, and I was convinced completely that I can do it, that it's not for me, and I was comfortable with that idea because I thought if I want to make films, I will work with cinematographers only. But then with this phone, it was just because it can make pictures, you just try out how it is. And at some point I understood that it was first time in my life that I liked the picture which I made. And slowly it really became an obsession. I started to make pictures and videos every day, and a lot. Hundreds every day maybe. And now I believe it really helped me to open eyes. The time before in my memory is like almost being half blind. I'm not saying that my eyes are now completely open. There is still a lot to do, I think, but they are much more open than before. So this incident of buying this phone became maybe one of the most important moments in my life, because since then I see more, and this seeing of more is strangely connected with pictures which show less. And this connection, I think one of the layers is that because it shows less, you have to see more. So it kind of makes your gaze much more sharp. And I think if you make a film out of it, and it's 3 hours with images which require sharpness, not from images but from the spectator. That's how the connection works.
I think that's extremely important, what you have said yesterday and now again, the whole idea of not showing and showing as the axis of any filmmaking practice. And I think it's what people like Kiarostami, Bresson, all those masters of cinema in a way have taught us to believe and to think about it. And I think your film does that. There is a joke, and it's not a joke, it's more than a joke, because it's not. There are invisible characters in your film that people yesterday were like, wow, it's a nice idea, but can you tell us a little bit?
For me, this is the most complicated subject to discuss about this film. And I was talking about my friend yesterday after the film, because almost for every detail of this film, maybe not from the beginning, but at least now I know how to talk about it. About the camera, about characters, about the story. So I always because this question comes sometimes
Yeah, I can
after
imagine.
screenings, but I didn't find my proper answer to it, because basically, and sometimes in Q&As I pretend to know the answer, and
Yeah, but you're thinking on.
I'm thinking on it, but I didn't find it. But and now, like with you, I can't pretend to know something, because it really started maybe with the most sincere wish to just make it. There is this idea which is more like a filmical, maybe playful idea, which gives me then a lot of energy to work on it. Because when the idea is there, maybe we can have these transparent, invisible characters. For me, it's like an engine for the film, because there are many moments of when you are unsure, like, is it interesting what I'm doing? So many moments of doubts and so on.
But also you said something yesterday that I think it's a good answer, which is the one about to interrupt people's life and to ask to be in the film, but maybe you can avoid it. And
this I learned later. This was not like really in the beginning. I just understood it while making it, the film, because generally I'm often also not super comfortable to work even with actors, because sometimes I don't know how to do it. But especially I get very uncomfortable when I have to ask people who don't have like fictional frames for the film and just have to represent themselves. But then in the beginning it was really idea of the film to go around places and ask people who we just meet to become parts of the film. And I was really struggling of doing it, and after maybe few times I thought, why am I struggling myself, these people? So remembering I had this idea of invisible people, it was very intuitional, but later I understood I was just doing it more and more, kind of replacing people who lived there with the transparent, invisible people who we then, the idea was to add the sound in later.
I wanted to ask something about the things that I wonder, how do you realize the possibilities of the camera in terms of the achievement, aesthetic achievement that you, in a couple of sequences, you are capable of doing things that for me it's outstanding. For instance, how do you realize, or how do you came into the idea to show the cleaning car, the moment of the washing car with the camera inside the car, because it's truly beautiful, that moment.
Well, this is one of the things which are and were not planned at all. It's because my father has had this, once in a while he has this urge that we have to clean the car. But I'm always like, come on, let's do it tomorrow. I always try to postpone it, because we go through the villages and a dirty road, so it doesn't make sense. It was always my idea, but still once in a while he was doing it. I was not angry, but kind of annoyed by it. And I always waited in the car, and at some point I just pulled out the phone, which was always there because I was sitting in front with my tripod. So it was very something we didn't plan.
Something else, and that is the last question. It's extremely important in the film, the music composed by your brother, Koberidze. And yesterday in the Q&A we had here in Biennale, I learned that it's not just the music, how he composed the music, but it was a very important element in the montage for you, in the editing of the film. It was not just something to add, but if not the contrary, something with back up the images. Can you tell a little bit more about this?
Well, The whole thing with the music begin, what Georgi also mentioned yesterday, with the book, because we were working.
The book is Plato and I.
Plater and I, yeah, and it was because we were we were shooting for 2 years, and I had a feeling he had a big breaks between shooting blocks, so I wanted to somehow give him the feeling where the film would go, and this book, I think, was what I was following mentally through the whole process, writing, filming, and editing. So I asked him to make a soundtrack for the book of Jimenez, and I think he understood it really well. But then, when I watched the material, what we did in these 2 years, which was basically the collection of things we choose to film, very repetitive. Springs, stadiums, landscapes, trees, dogs, and then again and again on different places. I understood that it needs a thread, a connecting thread to follow, to not fall apart, and music has become really this point.